one of the biggest questions that we seem to be getting these days, and we were proponents of this as well, which I think is a good thing to do no matter what, is installing Conversions API or cAPI. Now, what is the difference between cAPI and Tier 11 Data Suite? How do they differ? How are they similar? What's your perception of it? What's your take on it?
Yeah, so I'm basically going to share screen and talk you through this. So bear with me to make sure.
Yeah.
So you should be seeing Lucidchart. You should be seeing cAPI on screen. Is that correct? Or are we having some technical issues? Okay, perfect.
No, it's beautiful.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk through Conversions API, cAPI, or it's known as well first. Then I'm going to talk through the data suite, and then I'll show you a little thing I've put together overlaying cAPI onto the basically drawing that you presented the other week for Tier 11 Data Suite. Now, these graphs aren't obviously made exactly. It's not perfect because it's different sources. So some of the things might seem different. Like I'll talk you through it and make sure you understand. Try to ignore some certain things in the illustrations because they're not exactly correct how the sort of relationships work, but we'll work with it anyway, okay? So Conversions API, the thing that we told everyone to install to enrich their data, basically, is a way of getting around app blockers and browser blockers, things that are basically removing your data from coming back to the ad platforms, specifically Meta for Conversions API. So what's basically going to happen in the environment of Conversions API is someone's going to click on one of the ads, and they're going to have a click ID in their URL from Meta, the FB CLID. So they're then going to move to your website, okay? What was happening before when iOS 14 came into play was that click ID was being removed by the browser and Meta was losing any awareness of who that person was, okay? So they've clicked on an ad and they've basically just gone into no man's land. There's no way now to tie them back to your ad. Right. So what they did is they brought into play Conversions API. And what that would do is you're still losing that click ID, but the server that your website is hosted on is able to look at what the people are doing on the website and via the API, which is this section here, feed that first party data, so names, email addresses from the website back to the ad platforms. And then what Meta would do is they would look at the names they have for people, the contact information they have for people, the email addresses, the first party data. They would hash the data coming via the API, match it up, and they would try to basically match people that were coming from your API to the people that had clicked on your original ad or viewed through on your original ad, okay? And that was partially right. It was better than having no data, but you're losing a lot of data because the server has no idea who these people are. It's just relying on the names and email addresses that it's passing back to Meta. And anyone who signs up to an account knows you might have multiple different email addresses. You might have different names that you're using for your actual, your account, your credit card, whatever. Mm-hmm. They're not going to tie up perfectly. So there's a lot of data lost in this situation, okay? So it's essentially that. It's basically passing first-party data to the ad platforms, and then Meta does this thing where it tries to match people up. That's, in a nutshell, what Conversion API is doing. Is there anything else you'd like to add, Ralph, or is that good enough?
So the question then becomes, and where is, like, just at a base level, is first-party data, by capturing it on your own, like we used Google Tag Manager when we did this, obviously, but first-party data is being captured by your website. So therefore it's yours. So therefore that is the reason why this whole thing works. And you're passing it back to the ad platform as a first-party data. Maybe you can explain the difference between first-party and third-party, because I think that's where a lot of people get tripped up. Okay,
yeah. So first-party data, of course, is the data that's coming directly from you, like you said, is the website. Yep. Third-party data is coming via the pixel. So it's not your data, it's something sitting on your website that's passing that back to the ad platforms, essentially. So it's you own this data. It's people actually buying from you, giving you their email address and things. The other version, I guess it's like watching what's happening rather than being the actual, first party data.
Right. So you're using the pixel in this case. The pixel then becomes the third party in this whole thing. And the reason why cAPI works through the API is because you are the first party data. You actually own it, provided that you have a privacy policy on your page. You can do all this. You stay, above board with all the privacy restrictions that are not only in the United States but internationally. So there is that whole thing. Then the data comes back, and one of the things that we would always sort of check was the EMQ score inside Meta specifically. We're talking about Meta here, just in this specific example, is the EMQ score was our indication that we were getting a better match rate on specific events with cAPI. And we did see an increase in that efficiency. Can you talk to that and what that really means for you on a day-to-day basis, managing ads inside the platform itself?
Yeah, well, I mean, a better EMQ essentially for us is meaning we're getting better data back in our campaigns. So those campaigns have more data. It's a machine learning platform. They are better at optimizing. So essentially we can get better results because the machine is smarter. It's getting better match rates from that data coming back. So conversions API, no doubt, if you're just using Pixel, is a massive step up. And yeah, having it in place was the right thing to do until something new came along.
Right. And the other part to this is that, okay, you're getting better data than what you were getting blinded to. I remember you were a part of this in 2021 when this whole thing hit in the summer of 2021. And then all of a sudden it was just a nightmare because
it was terrible.
It was terrible. Facebook at that point in time, I believe it was just Facebook. It wasn't Meta yet. If my memory serves me correctly. They were caught. This came out of nowhere. They were ill prepared. And cAPI came out of that months later, which did restore some of the data inside the platform. But all of a sudden, we were completely flying blind. And especially I remember for some of our, I wouldn't even say like higher end, but iPhone users, Apple users tend to be, higher end buyers. And I remember one account in particular, we lost 60 to 70% of our conversions literally overnight.
Yeah, crazy.
And Facebook didn't have an answer to it. And so cAPI was an outgrowth of that. But there was a long time, it seemed like forever, but it was 3 to 6 months. I think it took us at least 6 months to maybe even longer to install cAPI in all of our accounts. And it still was a process because it was clunky and so forth. But all during that time, and even to this day, Facebook and Meta in particular still isn't getting all the data. They're still modeling a fair amount of data. Can you speak to that and like what you think as far as a percentage goes, like how accurate you're seeing things inside platform, how much is modeled, how much is actual, how much does cAPI really, enhance things? But then there's also sort of this whole other, a segment of users that are just never going to be captured.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of actual percentages, I don't really know what it would be. The reality is these days, and I think other people are the same who are using Tier 11 Data Suite, is we don't really look too much at the in-platform numbers anymore because it is just a lot of nonsense. And we have the data so we can look elsewhere. But in terms of, remind me, what was the other part of the question?
The model data. How much do you?
Yeah, model data.
Yeah.
Yeah, so model data is a big problem because if you are looking in platform, basically what Meta is doing is they're going, okay, we don't have oversight into what is actually happening on the website. We don't have the connection anymore. So we're just going to try and estimate based on how many people are, clicking away from our ad, how many people we're able to then match again later with our hashing from the conversions API. We're going to estimate like what percentage of those people are taking what action. So how many people are adding to cart, how many people are purchasing, and it is just way off. You might have some weeks where, especially if you're on a smaller brand, you'll look at it and you'll be like, oh, this looks like it is very accurate. And you'll have other weeks where it's telling you you've had all these sales and you can look at your Shopify dashboard and you're not getting anything. So it seems like it's a complete guessing game and it just doesn't have any credibility, even when you're at scale, in my experience. And we can show you later on in this when we look at the actual data suite data versus what you're seeing in platform for Meta, there's a significant difference, and data suite is always going to have lower CPAs because not because there's like it's a different brand or anything, just because all that model data is going to make your campaigns look worse than they are. And there's stuff you could be turning off because you don't think it's doing well, but it's just modeled data. It's not real numbers that are actually the performance of that campaign.